near-death experiences. What are they all about? We're going to talk about that today on the show and more on Elevate with the wonderful Kristen Mismash. Hey, Kristen, on the United Public Radio Network. Stay tuned, coming up. Welcome to Elevate, the awareness shift, waking the quantum self. I'm KAren Swain, your host, and you're listening on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network on 107.7 and 105.3 FM, syndicated radio all over the world. Hey everybody, so great to be with you all again on Elevate, the awareness shift, waking the quantum self. And we've got our favorite gal online, Shirley. Hello.
Hi,
Shirley. We were chatting in the Inner Sanctum online chat group that we've got about all sorts of things this morning. This morning for me, afternoon, evening for people in Canada and the US, and midnight, probably midnight in Europe or the UK, at least 11 p.m. Yeah, today, near-death experiences. We're going to chat all about that. Kristen and I we've already started the conversation. How do you define them? What do they mean? What's the difference between a near-death experience and an out-of-body experience? Is there an exclusive club that people that have had them sort of feel like you can only have different experiences if you've had an NDE? Anyway, we've already discussed all that already. Welcome, Kristen. Great to see you.
Hello. Nice.
So
this is going to be fun.
This is your topic, right?
It's one of my favorite topics. I've just been studying near-death experiences since I was a teenager. So, yeah,
right.
I'm excited.
And Kristen was asking me, was it you that said that when you started your show, you noticed that when you had people on that had a near-death experience, you got a lot of more views than others? And I said, yeah, like over a decade ago on the show on ATP Media. I think one of the first people I had on the show with a near-death experience was Nancy Rhines. It might have been Natalie Sudman, actually. Do you remember Natalie? She was blown up in a bomb blast.
Yes.
And she had a near-death experience. Anyway, her and Nancy were one of the first. But Nancy, yeah, back then, the algorithms have changed and I'm getting no views on YouTube. Luckily, we're, talking to hundreds of thousands of people through the network, hopefully. But on YouTube, my views have just plummeted. I don't know why. But back then, within a few weeks or a couple of months, I had 60,000 views on Nancy's show. The station had only been going for a few years. Yeah. And I just went, whoa, what is going on? So what I noticed was that people are interested in this topic, like what happens when you die. And I had we had someone that, I won't mention any names, who was feeling depressed and wanting to exit the matrix. And she put into Google, what happens when you die? Better find out what happens when you die. If I'm going to go there, is there life after death? Another one, Sandra Champlain, who was a skeptic about life after death. And then she started researching and found out not only is there life after death, there's a whole different story. And she started her own podcast show, We Don't Die.
Yep.
But yeah, this person that was in our group Googled, is there life after? And she found my show and she heard me speaking to people that had near-death experiences. And she went down that rabbit hole and decided life was definitely worth staying and hanging around, and had a spiritual kind of awakening through listening to my shows and also listening to people who had NDEs. So what about you, Kristen? What do you love about NDE stories?
Well, when I was young and I first heard about him, the very first time I heard about him, I was watching TV with my parents one night, kind of, snuggled up to my dad, and Raymond Moody was on a program like 2020 or 60 Minutes or something like that. And they were talking about these near-death experiences. And my dad goes, oh, that happened to me once. And I was like, what? Wow. And he said, he told me the story is how he had this shoulder surgery and he was sitting there talking to the anesthesiologist before going under, and he was getting his height and weight. And he said to the anesthesiologist, he said, look, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't take any medication. I'm a nice tall man, but be careful. And the anesthesiologist said, yeah, yeah, yeah. And my dad said he went under and he saw a tunnel and he went really fast and he saw a whole bunch of relatives on the other side. And they said, oh, it's so good to see you, but you're not meant to be here. You got to go back. And he said he went back through the tunnel and he woke up and he looked over at the anesthesiologist and said, you almost lost me, didn't you? And the anesthesiologist was like, what? How did you? Huh? And this was in the 70s. And that's my dad's story. He doesn't have all kinds of glorious and colors, but it just really opened my eyes to it. And then I really studied it because the religion I grew up in was very focused on the afterlife, and I wanted to see if they were right. So I was always looking for validation of my religious view of heaven. And I really saw it, but then, it just opened my eyes to everything. And I've studied it as long as I can remember. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah, there you go. So when I noticed that the shows that were talking about the afterlife or near-death experiences were getting more traction, I started scratching my head thinking why. And that's because people were Googling what happens when you die. So who are the people Googling what happens when you die? Well, there's one category, which is my category and probably your category, people that are interested.
Yes.
People that are interested, and they're interested, but they don't actually know they're here to be spiritual teachers. They're on a spiritual path. They're here to expand consciousness. And so that interest catches them and they're like, oh, that's fascinating. Then there are people that want to commit suicide. And they're like, what happens when you die? And then there are people that are older that are thinking about death and they're like, what happens when you die? And I have to say that with a lot of shows, podcast shows and events and things talking about the afterlife, the predominant audience is an older audience, right? So
so I've talked a lot about, I've done work with IANS, International Association for Near-Death Studies. I've helped with their conferences, and I'm on the board of the local Salt Lake City chapter of IANS, and I've been going there for more than 10 years. It's been around for 30, and the audience is predominantly more geriatric. There are a lot of older people, but we get a lot, it's growing, and we get a lot younger people more and more every time. So, and we get 70 to 120 or, so in person, and then we get a lot of people on Zoom. So it's big. Hi. Hello.
Hello. Yeah, I've noticed, especially being an older person, that a lot of people looking for this information are getting younger now. They're not suicidal or thinking about death because they're older, but they are having spiritual awakenings and interested, or they're having spiritual phenomena, like they're having psychic abilities, like with the telepathy tapes.
Yes.
All the kids that are completely telepathic are chatting to dead people. They know about the afterlife. They're talking to aliens. Like they're in the conversation. They're going for it. They're having the. So with shows like the telepathy tapes, who is appealing to a more mainstream audience, it's waking them up to what happens when you die. Because the conversation of what happens when you die is not just for the old or people ready to commit suicide.
Right.
It is absolutely about who we are while we live, like who we are while we live. Who's that? Hey, Kristen. There you go.
Park City is just 30 minutes from my house. So hello, Carrie Moore. We'll have to meet up. IANS meets on the 4th Friday of every month in Salt Lake. Come and say hi. So interesting what you were saying. Oh shoot! Now I lost my train of thought. What was the last thing you said about?
I know
how it plans your life. So there is a book. Yes, because I've read several books, and one of my favorite books about near-death experiences is a book called "Trailing Clouds of Glory" by Harold Whittleson, and it is all researched near-death experiences. And the book's a big fat book of people who go to the other side, and some of them are people that want to take their lives, and they are given the vision of their pre-birth planning sessions. And
nice.
You've had this hard life, you don't want to be here anymore, and you've had all these challenges, and we sat you down and you chose these, and we said, oh, this is a lot. Are you sure you want to do this? Kind of conversations. Trailing
Yeah.
Clouds of Glory is a fascinating near-death experience book.
Trailing Clouds of Glory, is that what it's called?
That's what it's called,
Trailing
by
Clouds
Harold
of Glory.
Widdison.
Oh, cool. Oh,
Mhm.
thanks for that. Yeah,
Yeah.
pre-burn planning sessions. You know, the one, I remember Yvonne Ballard, she was another one. I've got some favorites. I was just looking on my website. I put in near-death experience or NDEs. Like I've spoken, because I've been doing the show, I don't know, for about 15, 16 years now. Oh, 10 here. And I've spoken to a lot of people who had near-death experiences, and I don't remember all of them, but some stand out. Nancy's does. Penny how do you say her last name?
Whitbrot.
Whitbrot. She actually
Yes.
changed her name. She wasn't married when I had her on the show because it was probably about a decade ago. And Yvonne Ballard, who changed her name to Naya, who's since left the planet, and Natalie Sudman, they really stood out. Like I remember what they said. I've spoken to many more, but I can't actually remember what their stories are. But with Natalie, the thing that stood out for me was exactly what you were saying, like how she was planning her life. So this is what shocks most people with her. So she's on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
She has complete conscious awareness of who she is as a soul, with a soul plan after she leaves her body and contacts the other side. And she says to her mob, she's got a team of people, like she said she was speaking to a big group of people. She's like, I'm done. I've paid my dues. I'm not going back. Which I thought was funny. She was blown up in a bomb blast in Iraq, and she had a lot of injuries. So going back meant a lot of pain and healing, and which happens with a lot of people with NDEs. And they said, let me just remind you of the commitment that you made. And she's like, darn it, I did make that commitment, didn't I? Drats, yeah, okay, I'll fulfill my commitment. And she's over there with who she calls a buddy, like a spirit guide or another being that is not physically incarnated, or maybe they are, but she's with them, like with that aspect of them that is not physically incarnated. And she's designing her injuries and looking down the timelines, right? Like what happens if she's blind? What happens if she loses a leg? What happens if she loses an arm? And she's designing her injuries. And that's fascinating to me because she's out for seconds, like she's blown up, unconscious, conscious. She's out for seconds, maybe a minute, maybe a minute and a half, but a very short period of time. And in this so-called short period of time, she is doing all this stuff on the other side, and she's looking down different timelines and seeing how it plays out. And what was amazing was she had so much joy and so much peace over there that even looking at the struggles that the human her would go through was hilarious to her and her bug.
Yeah.
Like hilarious watching her stumble around when she's, half blind and, this and that. And that sense of humor, most people can't understand from this perspective, like having such lightness of being that you could look on all the tragedies that Earth offers and find it all so amusing. Like when you're down here, boots on the ground, not so amusing, but from that heightened perspective of complete bliss and what's the word, the adjectives I'm looking for, bliss and connection and unity and knowingness and super, infinite intelligence. You get the game on Earth. And probably about a decade ago, before I had people on the show, or maybe during that time, I used to consciously watch people's NDE stories just to feel better if I was feeling frustrated, down, depressed in any way.
Isn't that fascinating?
Because when people spoke about being on the other side, a lot of them, not all of them, spoke about the love and the belonging that they felt and the love. And often when they spoke about it, this is going to make me cry. Often when they spoke about it, they were remembering that feeling and they would evoke that feeling. And as they evoked that feeling, I would feel that feeling. And so I was sort of marinating in bliss as
like
they would share. Yeah. Sorry, go on. Having what?
Yeah, no, I just think, just sharing that, like having a shared experience, like really, man, you're empathic, Karen.
Oh, we all are. We all are,
we
really.
all are. We all
Yeah.
are. So the thing that I find, and it's taken me a while because I ask myself, because people ask me, why do you work with all the near death experiences? And they always ask me if I've had one. No, I haven't, But what I found about these people when they're sharing, it's so authentic. And I find
Yeah.
that they tend to be some of the most authentic people that I meet that are
Yeah.
teachers and way showers in the spiritual communities. They're
Yeah.
just they, and honestly, Karen, because I have some friends that are near death experiencers, when they share that experience and that accident, like Nancy blowing up in the in the bomb and everything, like they're re-experiencing that as they're telling it to us. And
Yeah.
then they talk about the bliss and we get to experience that. And then sometimes they'll go into the after effects of, growing up or waking up in complete pain, or, their families don't believe them, or they end
Mhm.
up, being labeled crazy and, dishonorably discharged from military service. Like,
Mhm.
all these kinds of things, and it's so authentic that they'll share those things with us, and often it takes them 7, 8, 10 years before they can piece it all together and actually write a book or speak
Yeah.
about it. There's an authenticity that just tears my heart out every
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, and people feel that. People feel that. There are some people that shared their NDE stories that are not so authentic.
Right.
I had this woman on the show. She wasn't that it wasn't authentic. She had a horrendous history. She was raped a lot as a kid. Oh, she had this terrible, and she used to leave her body. And during one of the beatings and rapes, she left her body and had an NDE. But she'd often just leave her body to escape the pain. But she was
Yeah.
really, really damaged, even though she had contacted that wisdom of the other side. It
Mhm.
hadn't healed her damaged heart. And yeah, and she had turned and attacked me, and had turned and attacked a lot of other people that
Oh,
had her on the show. It's like she was in pain. And that pain was like, I don't know, if you said something that didn't agree with her, now you're the enemy and you're the devil, and she's going to talk
oh,
about you online. Like, yeah, so she was damaged goods. So it's not like the be all and end all for spiritual enlightenment to have an NDE. That's for sure.
right.
It is an awakening process, but there's so many awakening processes, and there are arguments like you and I were talking before we went live about what constitutes an NDE. I think Eben
Yeah.
Alexander, one of the most famous NDE stories, is because he was a neuroscientist and he thought that consciousness was created by the brain, and that people's stories of NDEs was the brain firing, and he had a whole lot of scientific reasons
Right.
why
He did.
why it's all people making up stuff, all the brain firing, and all this stuff. And then he had his own NDE. But I think you said to me, is it considered an NDE if you just pop out of your body, or what do you think constitutes an NDE?
Yeah, well, and I think those are more like out of body experiences. And not that you can't have an out of body experience and go to the other side. You can go to the astral realms. I realized a couple years ago that I have memories of when I can't tell you what I did as a naughty 3-year-old, but I do remember getting spanked. But it only took me a couple years ago till I realized that all my memories of me being spanked were from a bird's eye view, like the top of
Uh-huh.
the ceiling of the room.
Uh-huh.
So, I was just watching it
You
happen.
popped out of your body. Yeah.
I popped out of my body because that was
Yeah.
traumatic to a little 3-year-old to get a spanking, for I don't even know what I would have done at 3 to
Yeah.
deserve that.
Yeah.
But anyway, but then like Jeffrey Olson, who had, a near death experience in a car accident where he passed away, and he went and he saw his wife who had also passed away, and she said, "You got to go back. You got to raise our son so that he's not an orphan." And it's a beautiful story if somebody has time to check Jeff Olson's out. But had that, which really was that he died and he left his body. But then he carried on to have an experience where he was in the hospital, and he was tootling around the hospital and experiencing all of the people around him. But he wasn't declared dead. He was on life support and he was there. So
Yeah.
but he had beautiful experiences.
Well, I've asked my mom about what constitutes the difference between an out-of-body experience, an NDE, a spiritually transformative experience. And you know what they say? You know, they laugh. They
Yeah.
totally laugh. They say, we find it amusing, you humans trying to define, non-physical experiences from your physical mind perspective and putting it into categories and defining it and saying, this is an NDE, this is not, this is an OBE. This, if you had talked to a spirit guide, then you had an NDE. If you didn't, you were just in the void, then it was, like they think that's hilarious.
Yes.
But what they do applaud is that we're up for it and that we're having them and people are paying attention. And it is a part of the shift of the conscious awakening plan to awaken people through humanity. And we've come up with the definition of what it constitutes an NDE and what constitutes an out-of-body experience. If you've had some sort of trauma where you've been hospitalized and your heart has stopped, or you're in a coma, or there's some sort of trauma where the body is breaking down, not necessarily dead, because Anita Morjani, who had an NDE, she was in a coma, so her body wasn't, dead, her heart
Right.
didn't stop
Flat
or her
line.
brain didn't. Yeah, exactly. But that still constitutes an NDE. That's what we call NDEs. But
Right.
in truth, an NDE, an out-of-body experience, or even dreams where you're hanging out with relatives in the afterlife, it's all the same thing. It's us refocusing on our spiritual, for a better word, perspective rather than our physical life perspective. So why do people go through so much trauma? Why be blown up in a bomb blast and Nancy Ryan's hit by a truck and 24 bones broken in multiple places? Like, why so much trauma to wake somebody up? Again, this is what the guides say. And they said it during the Charlie Kirk assassination. That trauma gets our attention, right? When someone's senselessly killed or senselessly hurt, bone up. And the whole point of getting people's attention is to spread this message.
Yeah.
So if Nancy Rhines, who was a skeptic or an atheist, she called herself an atheist at the time, a scientist, said, gee, I had a dream last night that I was with my dad in the afterlife and I spoke to a spirit guide and she gave me the meaning to life on earth and what love's all about. People will go, that's nice, Nancy. Go away. That's nice. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
But being hit by a truck, stuff, the rods in her spine, 24 bones broken in multiple places, and then coming out and saying, I died and I spoke to my guides in the afterlife and, I'm no longer it gets people's attention. They believe you.
It does.
They believe you, right?
Yeah.
Like Eben, I so honor the people that and Natalie that choose to be blown up in a bomb blast, that choose to get meningitis and die in hospital and have no brain activity. That's what happened to Eben.
Mm-hmm.
Because the whole premise of the scientific narrative was that, it's neurons firing in the brain that's giving you the phenomena. But when there are no neurons firing in the brain and you're hanging out with guides on the other side and feeling love and feeling bliss, then that story doesn't hold up. But he had to go through such trauma to bring that story to humanity. So, you want to honor those people who say, yep, I'm up for that. I'm going to awaken humanity by being blown up in a bomb blast, hit by a truck, meningitis. Even Yvonne Ballard, she was, again, one of my favorites. She's in my book, Awakened by Death. I've got quite a few. Where's my book? Let me pop the book up. Where are you, book?
Put it
Where
up
are
there.
you, book? Pop up the book away.
Yeah, what was Yvonne's story?
So Yvonne was a nurse and she died. She got very sick and died. And I loved her story because it was really expansive. She saw herself as a point of consciousness. So she didn't identify with being the body at all. So she wasn't in an astral form, in a sort of city like a Gladia, or hanging out with dead relatives, or hanging out with angels or spirit guides like a lot of people, or in the void, as many people go to, like Penny before she had her other experiences was in the black void first, and Claudia, when she died giving birth to her daughter, she was in the black void. So Yvonne was a point of consciousness, a bit like Virginia Drake, who I had on recently. And from that perspective, she knew she was one with everything, and she could explore anything. She said, if I wanted to look at the nucleus of an atom, I could go inside an atom and be inside the atom as a point of consciousness and see how energy works inside an atom. If I wanted to pull back and see the universe or the multiverse or the multiverse, I could do that. I could go and be inside the leaf of a tree. I could be inside a bird body or just that point of consciousness that had the freedom to be anywhere. It just like, whoa, that when she was telling me that, I'm just like, whoa, the expansiveness of that. And that's not just her, that's all of us. Like, that's who we are when we're not confined to identity. We're not confined to identity of who we've been in lives, whether lives on Earth as humans or trees or mountains or planets or ETs or animals. We're not confined to our astral form or our etheric form. We're just this point of light, this infinite point of consciousness that can zoom around the cosmos, the multiverse, the universe, and be and explore and go anywhere. And that was like, I was like, wow, I was really blown away by Yvonne. She explored time, the meaning.
Reread that.
Well, actually, she doesn't go too much into it in her chapter. I asked her to write the chapter for the book. So what happened to Yvonne is that she was a nurse, so she knew she was a light worker here on Earth, here to help people. And like many light workers, they don't understand how they can help people with their intuitive psychic ability or even their spiritually awakening experiences. And so they look out into the world and they say, how can I help people? Or become a nurse or a doctor or people helping charity or helping the old people. Like, they look at service-based.
Right.
And then you go down that rabbit hole and you're really busy and really caught up. And that's what happened to Yvonne. And when she had the ND, it was like a real wake-up call that she was here to teach. So after coming on my show, she really took that on and she started teaching and teaching and teaching. And so, what to eat, she started to sort of become this holistic teacher, talking about spiritual practices and physical practices. And that's where she goes in her chapter. She tells you what to eat, and she doesn't really go, which I asked her to write about her NDE and life on the other side. And she did a little bit, but she was more sort of teaching. She had this impetus to really teach. And I loved that. She would just get these downloads, all these thoughts, as I do. And she'd just pick up her mobile phone and start talking into a mobile phone and then pop all these things up online, because all this information was just coming to her all the time. She was just really open.
Wow.
Yeah. Bless her heart.
It's fascinating how different people's near-death experiences are. And, I was reading something or listening to something, and it was a little blurb describing them. And this person said, well, they go down a tunnel and they see relatives, and kind of like how I described my dad's. But what I have found is that's so few of them, because sometimes people just automatically wake up and they're in that void and that loving, unconditional void. And who was I talking to? I think it was you. And the void is more oneness. And some of those that have those experiences where they see their relatives or they see their guides and they're said, you chose this. That's more of an individual situation, where the void is more the oneness. But there was a man who came to the local IONS. I wish I could remember his name right now. And he had 2 near-death experiences from like accidents, like falling off a ladder or something like that. And both times he came up out of water, not through a tunnel. He came up out of water and experienced, his guides or loved ones. And then each time he was shoved back into the water, but pushed back into the water, and then he would wake up and he was back in his body. And I asked him afterwards, when I went up to him, I said, was that like them shocking you with the paddles? And he goes, Actually, it was. And
Wow.
it's so, but I mean, he clearly had a near death experience. And so everything, it's just all so different. It's all so different. And they're all valid, whether it's just out of body, near death. And I think I heard somebody say that Raymond Moody, who coined the term near death experience in his book,
Yeah.
you
Mm.
know, Life After Life, in 1975, that he kind of wishes he could go back and change that, because it's not even the perfect description for what it really is, you know, because you
Yeah,
do
but
die.
it might not be the perfect description, but it's working. You know what
It's
I mean? Like
working.
it's
Yep,
working. It's
very true.
working. People get it. NDE, near death experience. People got it. You know, they latch onto it.
Hmm.
Everyone's got a different experience about it. As I said, we were talking about the NDE club, and you know, only if you've had a near-death experience do you have the special gifts that you get from having a NDE. And I was saying to Christy, we were talking about this before, so we already had the show before the show. In the 10-minute conversation we had, like, I really think that's not right, because I've never had the classic definition of an NDE. Although all of us are out of body at night, hanging out with our spirit guides, we could be a point of consciousness zooming around the universe. We could be with our angels. We can be with our spirit guides. We can, you know, reemerge with our higher self. We can do all that, and we do it every night, every single night. Why is it so different to an NDE? Because we don't remember for the most part. And the people that have NDEs, or spiritually transformative experiences, or conscious out of body experiences, the only difference between them and us is they remember and we don't. Like, we just don't remember. We're under the veil of forgetfulness, or the river of oblivion, as it's
Yes.
been coined. But
Yeah.
now I've lost my train of thought. What was I going to say?
Just
We were
how
talking about.
different they are, and how.
Oh yeah, they're designed for each person. So people come in with a mission or a soul plan to speak to a lot of people, to write books, to speak on stage, like Nancy and Penny and Eben Alexander and even Natalie Sudman, many of the near-death experts that have become famous, Howard Storm, and some people have them more for their own personal experience, and a lot of people online, like, are you saying, Wellwood, Shirley, that you had one? She says it left her spooked. Oh, sorry, I missed that. And Alison says she's had one. And is not like other people's, but I respect other people's experiences. And yeah, and so they're designed specifically by you. What was that one that you brought up just then, Kristen? Was that Alison?
Allison, yeah, and it said, I did not go through a tunnel. I went straight to an all-knowing sea of gold and
Oh,
colored ocean, then
nice.
elsewhere. And I
Yeah.
was dead off on and off for 7 hours.
Wow.
Wow. I think you got to get
Wow.
her on the show. Who's this?
Yeah, Alison, have you ever shared your puppy? But you know, not everyone has
No.
an agreement to share them publicly. And like Howard Storm, he went to a hell experience, and then religious people say, "See, there is hell," because there are a lot of spiritual people. Well, I don't know, what do you call us, New Agers or conscious
Yeah.
people, who say there's no such thing as hell, there's no such thing as hell. But there are people who have hellish experiences. But
Yeah.
then those experiences are specifically designed by their higher self to be an awakening process. And for
Yes.
Howard, his hell experience was because he was pretty much an atheist. And then he finds himself in this horrible condition where he's being beaten up by, I don't know how you can be beaten up when you're not in a physical body. But anyway, he's in some astral form where he believes he's in his physical body. It's like those dreams, and you wake up in the morning and you think, oh my
Yeah.
God, I thought it was real and it was a dream. So you understand that you're in a reality which you believe is a physical reality, and he's being beaten up, and then he cries out to a God he doesn't believe in. So
Hmm.
that point was that what he needed to do was to reach for something he didn't believe in. And I believe that his higher self, or his guides, or his team gave him that experience so he would reach himself, you know, like from that conscious decision to
Yeah.
touch something that was beyond the logic mind, that God he didn't believe in. And he said,
Yeah.
and a lot of people say this when they have these hellish experiences, that as soon as they think of Jesus or think of God or say, help me to my angels or spirit guides or God or somebody, as soon as they ask, they're pulled out of the negative experience and they cross over to a more blissful experience. So a lot of NDEs are designed, okay, the guides are saying not a lot, Karen, all of them are designed specifically for the person. Thank you. They love correcting me. Specifically for the person, but also for the message that they bring. And Howard's message, he attracts a lot of religious people because he's a pastor. His message is pretty expanded because he talks about seeing aliens. And he and I had conversations outside of the show where he says he believes in a lot of things that he doesn't speak about publicly because the religious people would just write him off. Right. And he really wants to get this message of love and connection and unity across to everybody and not really offend people just because of their religious beliefs. But so they're designed specifically. But yeah, a lot of people have had them and never shared them. Alison, I want to know more about yours. What are you saying here? She's not ready? Not sure that I'm ready for camera just yet.
Yeah.
I know.
Hi, Diane.
And Shirley, you've had one. I see a sequel to your book, Karen. Book loaded, rooted.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot going on in the chat. People can hop on and read that through and ask questions too.
Heidi's had an NDE, like all of you closeted NDE people out there. Like I didn't. Well, maybe you have told me and I've forgotten. Please excuse me if I've forgotten. Did you put this up before? I believe my team tried to wake me up with my NDE, but I was in denial. So they had to get creative by putting numbers in my space, and we all laughed. Lol. I don't get that. What do you mean?
Yeah, the numbers. That's interesting. I wondered.
What's that mean?
Yeah.
Maybe you can elaborate on that, Heidi. What do you mean by numbers in your space?
Yeah.
So a lot of people, I was at lunch many years ago, with a girlfriend who lived in the country, not too far from me. And there was this gorgeous girl that she had met who lived near her. And she had this tattoo. Now, where was the tattoo? A while ago. But I asked her, it was on her chest. It was quite an elaborate tattoo. Suns and angels and all sorts of things going on in this tattoo. And I said, tell me about this tattoo. And she wasn't too forthcoming. She said, I just really liked it. I said, is that an angel? Yeah, that's an angel. And I said, what's all that energy around the angel? She's like, she was like really reticent to say anything. I said, you've had an NDE. And she looked at me. And she's like, yeah. But she didn't know she could talk about it to anybody. And if she did, they'd think she was crazy. But she had this huge tattoo, just like depicting her NDE, and she's like, yeah. And I gave her the permission to talk about it, which was such a cool feeling, right? When people think.
Well, and that's what organizations like IANS do, is they work to make it so people can talk about them. One of the founders, and she passed away a couple of years ago, Diane Cochran, she was a triage nurse during the Vietnam War. And she would go out into, the front lines and be bandaging up these boys. And they'd grab her arm and say, I just saw Jesus, or I just saw, and there was no conversation, no dialogue, no training, obviously. And she finally realized these boys, they died. These boys actually died here, and they've come back. And, in places like the military, that's a place you would not wake up and start talking about those things. And so she was one of the founders of the International Association for Near-Death Studies, because and they have a huge chapter and arm that's all military people to help with that. Yeah.
I did not know that, Kristen. That's really fascinating.
Yeah. And so it's really to educate doctors and nurses and psychologists and things like that. It's more of an, like an education research type foundation. And it's beautiful because it is so much more of the conversation now. And I love it. I mean, we can see it on YouTube. You can see all kinds of different ones. And on shows like this, we're talking about it, so.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when I was running the Academy of Light years ago, which was a Monday night gathering where we'd have a speaker. And basically I was doing what I'm doing with the show, but I was doing it in person. But it was just a very small group, a dozen people. 30 was our biggest group. one day. But anyway, there was a guy that came to speak who called himself a spiritual teacher, who was killed in Vietnam during the war and had an out-of-body experience, NDE. And I say killed, he was shot and in a coma, or I can't remember the specific details, but anyway, badly damaged. And he spoke about, it's also many years ago, it's over 20 years ago now, but he spoke about the bliss. But he obviously left the military and pursued spirituality, and then became a spiritual teacher and used his story to illustrate what he experienced on the other side, the bliss, the love, the unity. Somebody sent a video in the group this morning. Who was it? Was it Brad? No, it was Sarah.
I can't recall.
Anyway, of Darius Wright. She's all over the internet. And I said a friend of mine used to live near him. I don't know if he still lives down there, down the coast, and she used to see him on the beach and chat with him. And I asked him to come on the show, but he never got back to me. But he was talking about fear, and he was saying he's a conscious astral traveler. And he was talking about the love on the other side. And he said something I didn't agree with, because the reason I wrote my first book, let me just plug the books, plug away, Return to Love, the fastest way back to spirit is through death, but we don't have to die. Love will get us there. Yeah, I mean, the whole premise of that book is to return to love while we're still in the body. Like, we don't have to die to return to the love. So a lot of people say who've had I felt a love that we can't experience here on earth. And I think to myself, it's not we can't experience it. It's that we don't allow ourselves to experience it, because we're so caught up with our negative thought forms. Even people who've had NDEs, they feel like no one will understand me. People think I'm crazy. I'm alone in my understanding. I can't talk to anybody about it. All those thoughts keep us locked in a prison of negativity, which doesn't allow us to feel that expansiveness, that love, that belonging, that unity of who we truly are.
Yeah.
But the whole point of having the physical experience is to swim through the density, to dance with the drama, and return to love while still incarnate, while still in the body.
Yeah.
And when we finish this incarnation, we understand that that's why we came. We didn't come to leave the body to feel love. We came to bring love into the body. Mm-hmm. And then as we evoke it in ourselves, we spread it around, like I was saying to you, when I was listening to people speak about the love they experienced on the other side, and they would remember it, they would feel it, like that love was just emanating out of them, and I would feel it. And that's what we want to do. We want to spread more love in a world that is so marinating in hate and fear. Yeah. And I think that's the point of the near-death experience, the spiritually awakening experiences, is to remember the love that we are and spread it around. But as so many of us do, we come up with reasons why we can't, because we feel not understood.
Right.
We feel alone in the world. People call us crazy. We're engaging in ideas and understandings that keep us locked away from the love of who we are.
Yeah. Well, and these people that go through these harrowing experiences where, I've noticed a few people that kind of follow around, think, they kind of glamorize it and think it's so cool. But, these people have gone through horrible harrowing experiences. They also are left with physical ailments that last the rest of their lives. Mm-hmm. And also, not only that feeling of not feeling like they can't share it, it's very common for them to go through long bouts of depression. Why didn't heaven want me? Why was I kicked out? And that's the negative embody thing that hits them, and it's so tragic. But for them to be brave and to share and to stand up and then to teach us what they know. And then I'm always fascinated with, so how did that change your life? What do you do today, 20 years later? And, teach me that. Claudia Edge, her near-death experience, she is not quite that long, but it opened her up to teaching. And so she always she has these books called like Teachings from the Edge, because she gets taught now all the time by other beings or loving family members because she's open to that. And
Yeah.
and so I mean her information and what she has to share is expansive and beautiful. But
Yeah, Claudia was on the show recently. I got her back on the
I
show. I don't know if
know.
you saw it, but yeah, like she had an NDE where she experienced the void, like
Mhm.
Penny Whitbrow. She went
Whitbroad.
into that dark Whitbrow. She went into that dark place, and when Penny was in the dark place, she was really scared, being in that nothingness of just blackness. And then again, a bit like Howard Storm, when she started to ask and reach mentally for something else, that the darkness disappeared. But I don't think Claudia's darkness was a horrible place. It was she was in a warm, comfortable place. She was warm and comfy in this dark place, but she knew she was out of body. But yeah, she came back in, and she was indulging in negative thoughts when she started listening to other people's NDEs. How come
Yeah.
mine isn't as extensive as theirs?
Right.
Comparison. What does somebody say?
Right.
Comparison.
Yeah.
Comparison is the thief of joy, is an
It
expression that
is.
someone
It
came up
is.
with. So she was prepared, but she turned that comparison into something more. Like her guide said, okay, you want something more, you're gonna go to spirit school, and we're gonna
Yeah.
allow you, like
Yeah.
we're all in spirit school every night, right? We're all in spirit every night, but we're going to allow you to re-enter the physical incarnation with memory of our teachings, and asking you to write it down and put it in your books. And that's what she did. And so she turned the negative into the positive, which we have the ability to do. But what's something else I was going to say about NDEs? People say, oh, I forget, because I'm trying to get back to Heidi here. Numbers. My journey started, Heidi says, with numerology. I couldn't deny the fact that I was noticing numbers, and I laughed at the fact because I was never really into schoolwork, analytical, so I laughed at myself every time. I talk about numbers. I was so curious and super focused on it, found numerology and angels, then light workers. Yeah, is
Yeah.
that how it all started for you, Heidi? That is so
Wow.
cool.
Yeah, numerology
Yeah.
was like her gateway into it. Like I say, near-death experiences were kind of my gateway into all the spiritual topics and things that I study now, you know. And you and I were talking about gifts. I'd love to go back to that because there are people who have gifts. Karen, you have incredible gifts, but you didn't have a near-death experience. You
Not
talked
gifts,
about
not gifts, abilities. I always say
abilities.
that. I don't think I've got any gifts. They weren't a gift given to me by God. There are our natural, innate human abilities that we can ignore or expand
Yeah,
depending on our focus. So
gotcha.
we're living under the veil of forgetfulness, swimming in the river of oblivion, or whatever you want to
Mhm.
call it. But we have the opportunity to awaken. And this is something my NDE, but I'm just getting back to Alison here. 3D is crushing after NDEs. That's
Yeah,
something that a lot of people say. Yeah, that's what we were talking about. They've experienced bliss, and then they come back into their negative thought form. It's not like we're coming into a matrix that is designed with negativity. It's the beliefs that we're engaging in. And so a belief like, 3D is crushing after the bliss, I feel that, again, that doesn't feel good. Like, I don't want to be here. A lot of people say I was forced to come back. I think your dad or lots of other people
yeah,
say I was forced to come back. And something my guide said to me, that never ever are you forced to come back. That is an
right,
idea of the ego mind that thinks that it's not powerful, because the ego mind is there to separate you from your power, or you
right.
from love, or you from God. I mean, it's a beautiful part of what the experience of being human. But it's that ego mind that says I was forced to come back and I don't want to be here. And that's just a huge thought form in the spiritual community. I don't want to be here. So people learn about the bliss and the love of who we are on the other
Yeah,
side, or, when we're outside the body. And then they live inside the body, their physical life, wanting to be somewhere else. Like, that's hell on earth. That's
yeah,
torture. Like,
yeah.
being here and not wanting to be here, that's torture. And that thought locks you out from your connection to the love. Like, if
Gotcha.
you're in that place of, I love being in this physical body, old, fat, wrinkly, and all, sick, in pain. I love it. Thank you. My gratitude will
Yes.
open the door to reconnect to the love. But what was I going to say? I keep losing my train of thought. What were you talking about before I got into that?
I don't know. Do you have to do a station ID? Are we in trouble?
Station ID.
With 10 minutes of the show left.
Let's do station ID. You're listening to Elevate Consciousness, the Awareness Shift, Waking the Quantum Self with Karen Swain and Kristen Mismash. Today we're talking NDEs, and we are on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. Syndicated radio all over the place, coming out of New Orleans and the Gulf Coast on 107.7 and 105.3 FM radio. I don't exactly know how it works, but apparently hundreds of thousands of people are tuning in. So I want to say hello to you all. It's only a small group online or in the chat anyway, about 15, 20 people in the chat. What is Heidi saying here? I've been saying since I was 12 that I will live through the catastrophic world changing events. I knew I came here for something.
Wow.
Yeah. And Alison is saying, I chose to come back, but the bliss, what's that say? Accentuates the
negative at first. I think those are typos.
Right. But the bliss, you chose to come back. But again, a lot of people say, what's Mish saying here? Hell is what we live every day on earth. We experience all the emotions here. Yeah, I don't know if you want to call it hell, but you could call it hell. And again, getting back to Natalie and her bliss and joy at designing her injuries from that perspective on the other side of being in such bliss and thinking that everything she designed was funny. Like from that perspective, you don't see this experience, no matter what we go through, as hell.
Right.
But can we embody that perspective while in the body? Like that is the point. This is the reason why people are dying in bomb blasts, getting hit by cars, getting poisoned. I think Howard was poisoned, dying in hospital. This is the reason that all these people have designed their life to wake us up to the bliss of who we are and to enjoy our lives while we're embodied. And I think we have to honor them by loving life. That's the message they're bringing. That's the message they're bringing, by loving life and not feeling like, get me the hell out of here. Because there are all these people going through all this trauma to bring a message of love. And really, that's Nancy Rhines' message. Like, I loved having Nancy on the show, bringing that message of love. And for us not to misinterpret it and say, love happens in heaven, not on earth. Like, love happens on earth if you will allow it. If we can allow it, love happens on earth. Yeah.
I often think, am I a spiritual being inhabiting a body, or am I, a body inhabiting a spiritual being? But it doesn't matter. My spiritual being comes from pure unconditional love, whatever that is. And so I am unconditional love all the time, you know, and I to live in gratitude or make it fun or funny and bliss helps me to remember that and to be that out in the world, and then know that that's what everybody is. Right?
Yeah, that's what everybody is. Yeah.
So that's a lot of the things that I learned from these near-death experiences and studying them for so many years, is that unconditional love that is all, I don't have unconditional love for you. I am unconditional love, and so are you. That's how I feel.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember we had Kat on the show. We were talking about love, and I was trying to get the message across that she said, when am I going to meet someone to love me? And I said, this is the mistake we make as humans. We feel the lack of love because we're believing our stressful thoughts. And then we look for love in all the wrong places. We look for it in the lover. If somebody loves me, then I'll feel loved. But, the NDE experience, or the spiritually transformative experience, is you are love. I mean, that's something we discussed at length with Nancy. She said the matrix of life, not just physical life, but all life. She says the substance of the universe is love. Love is not an emotion. Love is the meaning to everything. Love is the architecture of all of it. Like Esther Hicks from the Teachings of Abraham says that we come from a world of pure positive energy. There is only one source. There's no source of evil. There's only one source, and it is pure positive energy, or love. It is the creation of everything. So if it's the matrix that creates this 3D world, 4D world, 5D worlds, all the dimensions, yeah, we're not looking for love. We are love. Can we reconnect, remember, become re-aware of the love of who I am? And then you stop looking for it, and you start sharing it. And when you share it, you attract it, right? When you share love, you attract love. And two lovers come together, loving all over each other, and that creates even more love. And it's a blissful, ecstatic experience, whether it's with your cat or your lover, your dog, or your children. Love is love. People say there's romantic love and then there's this, but there aren't different loves. There is only love, and it's like what we do with the love. Like we either romanticize it, or we make it about being a mother or a father, or we make it about being a pet owner or a horse owner, or whatever we do. Or we love our work, but love is love. Can we be that love instead of looking for it? And that changes the game here on earth when we stop looking for it and start being it. Yeah. What's Shirley saying here? Is the only thing that makes sense to me right now. Love is right now. Be an explorer and live, laugh it all. Even when we're crying, love it all. Yes, darling one. I didn't know you had a near-death experience, Shirley. Is that the first time you've told me? Have I just forgotten? You might have shared it with us. But yeah, a lot of people have them and they haven't shared it with us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Have you ever had, because I've had an experience of an out-of-body experience during a nightly dream. People pay no attention to it. I talk about it on podcasts endlessly, where I'm moving through dimensions. I'm in a school on the other side. I said, how do I move through different dimensions? And the teacher shows me, and then I'm hanging out with Shirley MacLaine, and like a whole lot of stuff happened, and I've shared it, but I wasn't hit by a truck. I wasn't injured. I didn't have any scientific proof that I was out of my body. So it goes unnoticed.
Yeah. I've heard you speak about those things, and the one time when you're sitting there watching, and then your daughter comes in, and you see her try to wake you or something like that. I've heard you talk
well. Exactly.
Yeah.
Unbelievable experience. When I came back to my body, I'm sitting at a table hanging out with all these people in another dimension, and I feel like I'm in an earthquake. I feel this trembling, and I look up and I go, what's happening? And before, like it's seconds, I find myself back in my bedroom, in and out of my body simultaneously, and I see the matrix. I see the negative. I see the structure of life. Everything is translucent and transparent. Like I see everything as energy and light. I'm seeing through all the walls. I could see as far as I wanted to look. Like I could see into the next room, my daughter waking up in the bedroom. I could see past the suburbs, depending on where. And this is the message that they gave me. Thank you. I was trying to say it before, but I forgot, dropped out of my head. I said to my guides after that experience, I didn't travel anywhere. A lot of people, when they have NDEs, say, I went through a tunnel and I was traveling as fast as the speed of light. You hear that. They were traveling. I didn't travel anywhere. I didn't feel like I was moving from one place to another. I was just there, with thought. I was there. And they said, it's all about focus. You don't actually travel. There is no time or space. That is an illusion of the third dimension, time and space. Where they said, like a camera, what you focus your attention on is what you'll see, and what you see is what you live. So you're either focused in the physical or focused in the spiritual. So you can be awake and in your body and focused in the spiritual, as many psychics are, and be on the other side without having an out-of-body experience, without having an NDE, dying, being hit by a truck, without being asleep and being dream. Like we're here and there simultaneously, but where is your focus? Like it's all about where you put your focus. Gotcha. And I'm like, wow. Yeah, that was a intense lesson. So where are you focused? Are you focused on the negative? Are you focused on the positive? Are you focused on the love? Are you focused on the lack of love? Are you focused on your physical being the identity of who you are? Are you focused on the love that you are? Like, where do you want to put your powerful focus? Because where you put your focus is how you create your reality. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And with that, we've run out of time. God, it goes quickly, doesn't it?
It goes so fast.
Yeah.
It goes so fast.
Goes so fast. I love hanging out with you, having these chats, Kristen.
I love it too, Karen. It's one of my favorite things.
And thank you
So
to the luscious ladies online. I didn't see too many guys, the
there
luscious
was a
lads
guy
online.
on there, and
Was there?
yeah, I think it was a man. Let's see, where was it? And they could be
Yeah.
listening. I have a friend who listens, a gentleman, and he's not able to comment for some reason.
It's probably
Oh,
not signed into YouTube.
yeah,
But we've
and
run out of
also when
time.
they're on their phones, sometimes it's
We've
harder.
hit the hour. We'll do it again next week. Kristen will come back. Tell me what you want to talk about next week. We could expand on this topic because it's a cool topic. The afterlife, psychic ability, I don't know, telepathy, any aspect of life really. I want y'all, Heidi and Shirley and Alison. Maybe you all want to come on and share your experiences.
Right.
Get y'all on. Tell me. I'm putting on a Texas accent. Anyway, we've got to go. We've
I
run
love
out of
it.
time. Big love to you. Big love to
Bye.
everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Gratitude. See you soon. Bye for now.
Bye for now.